Less than 1 week after the conclusion of the NBA investigation into Robert Sarver himself has decided to sell the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury. He will not be the owner anymore. How did we get to this point? How do we wrap our heads around the end of this guy's entire tenure? And what does it mean for everything about basketball in Phoenix? We'll talk about it all on today's episode of Locked On Suns. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 5 seasons, and a writer at Suns.com and Dime Magazine. Huge thanks for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this maybe Wednesday evening, maybe Thursday morning. We are recording a little earlier than normal. Big news today. So again, thank you for following along. Hit subscribe. If you're just finding the show, make sure you do not miss it. We are here for you every day, making heads and tails of everything going on with the Suns today and every day, even when things are not bombshells. But of course, Robert Sarver deciding to sell the team is huge news. We're going to break it all down on today's show. Joining us to do so is Aaron Edwards for his weekly visit. Aaron, I was trying to think, and I saw a lot of fans talking about this. Is there another day bigger than this in the history of the Suns? Like, this might be the biggest moment, day, whatever you want to say, that this franchise has ever seen.
Yeah, the going to the finals was fun. Like, we've done it the 2 times that I've been alive, but this was different because we talked about it at the beginning of the offseason where we were like, this is the first time where the Suns are in the mix in offseason stuff, like the drama of it, like all of it. And this is like the peak offseason drama. Like, we've never, ever been a part of anything like this before. And you could tell, like, just on Twitter, like, I made a joke about any team that CP3 goes to, they lose an owner, and everybody was asking him to go to their teams. Like, losing an owner is a big deal. Yeah. And it's, like, even huger out here because we've wanted it to happen for so long.
Yeah, we've only had 2 owners of basketball teams in Phoenix. And that's one of the other things with this. Like, even if Sarver or any owner isn't, like, sort of forced out, although he was unofficially forced out, right? But like, even if it's just a regular sale, it only happens once every few decades. Like, these things don't move around all that often. So even if he had just decided to sell, that would have been a massive moment, a turning point, for better or worse, we don't know. But for it to happen now with everything that came before, with the investigation and the fine and the suspension and all of that stuff, it's huge, and it's going to change this team. It's going to change this franchise, this organization, whether it's in the community, for fans, for the on-court product. It's all going to be different, and we don't know what way that'll look. But I wanted to read Sarver's some of Sarver's statement. It's not that long. I'm going to read all of it. And this, I'm going to laugh and step on the grave a little bit. Pardon me. I'll just say it at the top. Clearly don't like the dude. It's okay. I understand I'm a journalist, but I can also not like bad people. So
this entire time I was like, all right, Brendon gets to be the impartial one or the partial one, and I get to have fun. And Brendon's like, no, we're not doing this today.
Not today. I feel like I held my tongue to a degree with the whole time, but what I was going to say that's funny before I read the statement is he had to release this himself because he's not allowed to talk to the PR for the team because he got suspended for a year. So if anyone's wondering why it came out the way that it did, where it's just sort of signed by Robert Sarver on prnewswire.com, it's because his suspension kicked in. He's not allowed to be around anybody. He can't contact any of the basketball PR folks. So that's why it happened the way that it did. But here's the quote, or here's the statement. Words that I deeply regret now overshadow nearly 2 decades of building organizations that brought people together, strengthened the Phoenix area through the unifying power of professional men's and women's basketball. As a man of faith, I believe in atonement and the path to forgiveness. I expected that the commissioner's 1-year suspension would provide the time for me to focus, make amends, and remove my personal controversy from the teams. that I and so many fans love. But in our current unforgiving climate, it has become painfully clear that that is no longer possible, that whatever good I have done or could still do is outweighed by things I have said in the past. For those reasons, I'm beginning the process of seeking buyers for the Suns and Mercury. He says he doesn't want to be a distraction. He wants what's best, and he'll continue to support the community in, quote, meaningful ways. We can get into the tone of that. I want to just draw attention to the lack of remorse, number one, that he's still showing. If anyone had any question about what type of dude he was based on anything else, even as he's scratching and clawing and getting hundreds of millions of dollars in his pocket, he still won't accept what he did, and also wanted to like kind of cloud the reality of the situation by saying that all of the good he's done is outweighed by things he's said in the past. No, it's not just things you said, it's things you did. It's like he hasn't read his own report or wasn't sitting in his own interview where he admitted to all the crap that he did. He can't remember clearly that he also did things that created pretty bad situations for people. But anyway, sarcasm aside, has Robert Sarver been listening to Joe Rogan or Dave Chappelle or cancel culture TED Talks? What's going on here?
Yeah, he hit us with the, like, this is happening to me. Like, I'm sorry you guys got mad at me. Like, that's not an apology. And he, like, did, like, pretty much the bad boyfriend breakup. Like, I'm sorry you're mad. And he was like, I'll sell the team because you guys are so mad at me. Like, that's pretty much what his entire thing was. It was not taking any blame and being mad at us for being mad at him. It, like, didn't make any sense.
It's kind of like the definition of gaslighting a little bit. He's just
Yes.
gaslighting the whole entire city of Phoenix and the entire NBA. Like, yeah, just sort of not representing reality truthfully and just embarrassing himself on the way out. But joking aside, this is just a huge thing. I mean, what do you think was the domino? Because I think the PayPal thing, I coincidentally decided to talk about the PayPal thing yesterday after a couple days of like pure basketball shows. And that was good timing because I still stand by that. And this only reinforced it. I think the business part was always going to be the bigger thing. But to me, this feels, Aaron, like there must have been more going on behind the scenes that we didn't know about. Right?
Yeah, I think last week I said, like, if the money starts like being an issue, like if sponsors and money wise, like the NBA owners care about that more. And if that comes up being an issue, then that's when problems are going to arise. And that's what happened. But I do think it was bigger. Like I told you in our text, like I really think that he saw the writing on the wall. He saw the blowback, and maybe like not a year from now, like, or leading up to when he's supposed to come back, it was just gonna build up again. Maybe it would have dissipated like during the middle of the season, but once the rumblings came back, like Sarver's suspension is up, like he's gonna be back soon, then it was just gonna like restart like day one again, and he was gonna get booed every game, like every time he got showed on that screen. Like he was like, it wasn't terrible while leading up to it, while the story was still out there and we weren't sure what actually happened. He was still at the games. And he was getting put on the screen and people weren't booing him per se. Like he was just on the screen and we're like, all right, Sarver's here. Like he was going to have a rough time being part of this team again. Like regardless of when he came back or when he tried to be a part of the team, it was going to be rough. And I think he saw that, and it just wasn't going to be fun. I don't care how proud you are or like how much you love this team. Like you're going to be bummed getting booed at a team that you own every single day. You didn't buy the team for that.
No, I mean, I've talked a lot during I guess what's only been a week, but just that this is kind of all he has left. Like he doesn't run he had a real estate company a long time ago. I don't think he's involved with that anymore. He was sort of like dismissed unceremoniously from the bank that he founded as a chairperson, and they cited this investigation as a reason why. And, you know, he owns the Mercury. Obviously, they're sort of one and the same because they don't exist. Their seasons aren't at the same time, and all the staff is overlapping a lot. And then he has a second division Spanish team. I don't know what the status there is, but you know, this is it for him. So it was probably really cool for that to be your only thing when it's making you a lot of money. The team's competing for a championship. The revenue's coming in because of all that. And you get to act however you want and make it your little playground, right? But it's not so fun when, like you're saying, whether it's booing or your leadership team or your staff overall just hating you. I mean, or your fellow owners every time you show up at owners meetings, like the situation was going to become untenable. And the thing that I want to, we can keep on this because I think this is the meat of what matters about why he did this. But on the PayPal note, to wrap that part up, their statement, and I posted about this on Twitter at the time too, and I didn't say it on the show, which is the opposite of how the order should go. But it wasn't just about PayPal not wanting to be the jersey sponsor. Who's going to step up and be the jersey sponsor, right? It was the act of, it only was going to take one to create that domino effect, because you're making life miserable for the business of the Suns, right? You're making it toxic to be associated with them. PayPal's a big company. I don't know if they're the biggest sponsor of the Suns. Verizon's pretty big. Footprint obviously is pretty big. We know of other ones. I don't know if it's number one on the revenue list for team companies paying the Suns, but it's huge, and it's a recognizable company, most importantly. And so for them to go out and say, like, we're not going to be associated, we're no longer going to do business with these people. If you're U-Haul or some other local company, are you going to step up and do that? And then you look awful, right? So I think that was a big ripple effect that didn't get talked about enough. Is like, it wasn't just that company did it. It was that they were creating an environment where it was going to be pretty heavily criticized for any company to step up and do that. But I think there's the corporate part of this. I also think there's the NBA side of this and the player side of this and everything else. So I want to get into that stuff next. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by BetOnline, your number one source for all of your pro and college football needs all year long. We have a fancy new, there we go, BetOnline logo. I think I have a better one up here as well. There we go. Oh, that's in the middle of our screen. We are going quickly. Okay, BetOnline. Cardinals, 3.5-point underdogs. I've been telling you guys all week to hit that. They are home underdogs. Have been doing well in the NFL. I don't fully buy the Cardinals, but at some point they have to beat Sean McVay. And I guess after last week's second half, I'm willing to bet on anything. My fantasy team would be pretty appreciative if they could get the job done as well. College, I'm not even going to look at the ASU lines, but the point is BetOnline has them all. Every single game that matters, every single weekend in football. They're not only going to have odds for you, but they're going to have news, podcasts, analysis, articles, scores, everything to inform that betting. One-stop shop, everything you need. Head to the website today. That's betonline.net, or use their mobile app to learn more about the latest trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Aaron. So, like I said, I think there might have been some business stuff, and if you have any more thoughts on that going on behind the scenes, just in terms of were other sponsors making similar threats, but maybe just not doing so publicly, that would be pretty easy for me to believe. If Verizon was sending signals, if Footprint was sending signals of, hey, this isn't going to happen. Fry's Food and Drug, we know that's a local one. That's a pretty big sponsor of the Mercury, especially. Who knows, right? But I could imagine that happening. I also feel like, and this is interesting to me, especially on the NBA side and the player side, I saw some people bringing up there must have been some level of coordination to hear from LeBron, Chris Paul, and Tamika Tremalio, the executive director of the union. And then he maybe even throw Draymond in there, who we know has a relationship with LeBron too, although I kind of believe Draymond just does what he wants, and he just had the right opinion separately, or the opinion I agree with, I'll say. Do you buy that? Do you think there was momentum coming? We did see a statement from CJ McCollum later in the afternoon saying he basically appreciated Sarver doing the right thing. We never heard from McCollum directly, but do you feel like this was a little bit of an anticipation of, like, if we let this get to media day, it's going to get ugly with the players? I could buy that too.
Yeah, I think it was going to get ugly with the players anyway, with the fact that he said this and he was going to come back, and then you were going to try to sign dudes in free agency and stuff like that. Like, I just think it was going to be a problem regardless. Like, we already lost Rich Paul, and that's one of the biggest people you can lose because
Welcome
of
back,
Sarver.
Rich Paul.
Yeah.
Speaking of clutch.
Yeah,
hello. If you want to open an office in Phoenix, I like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I think he's a great role player. I like Alex Caruso. I think is a clutch client. Yusuf Nurkic. Welcome to Phoenix, everybody.
Yeah, and I think like when you can't work with one of the biggest agencies in the NBA because of your owner, and they were going to let him stick here even after having that problem. Like I think that just it was so much easier to get him to go because it just cleared up the basketball business part of it a lot more. The players were always going to have an issue with this and wanting to come here regardless of who they were cool with that went here. Like Book is stuck here. Like he's going to be here regardless. And getting people to come play with you just seemed like it would have been harder with this knowing what Sarver does and the fact that he was coming back.
Yeah, when the business partners and the labor who work for you both are labor being the players actively revolting against you, not to mention his actual staff on the business side who have been openly revolting for years by leaving and then leaking to the media about the awful experiences they had. It even in a place like our great country where all these types of folks are protected to the nth degree, I think you're right. It just was. It was going to become untenable, even if it wasn't already. I actually think, in a way, that suspension that's part of why you posted our text thread on Twitter, and like that was part of why I was a little skeptical of the fallout coming so quickly. Is like, in a way, the year suspension, it had to happen now, right? Like the fallout had to hit a high point right now, because if the season started and people are loving, dunk highlights and whatever else, it was going to fall away. And so that's kind of what I thought would happen is like, yeah, there'll be a lot of outcry. People will be really pissed. And maybe we reevaluate it around next year when he's set to come back. But I didn't think like January, all of a sudden somebody's going to get really mad and make another fuss about this. So,
Yeah, I think they had to do it at this exact time because it would have destroyed free agency for us. Like we didn't end up doing anything, which worked out anyway. But I think like just this coming out about an owner while players are deciding where they want to go would have crippled us, I think. But the fact that they waited, I think they were kind of expecting something like that. So they kind of had to wait for our players and for us to make the moves that we were going to make, because I think they knew all this stuff already. They just needed a time, like they needed to time it right to release it.
Do you are you, I don't know, this is I don't know how to ask the question. Like, are you happy with how it went down? Cause I feel like I'm like, I want to say I'm not dumb. I understand how stuff works in sports here, in the government here. We have a guy who was the president who got impeached a couple times, might be the president again. I'm not dumb. Okay. Like I get all of it, but I can still be frustrated and want a different process in the future. And these things only happen so often. Like you mentioned, I'm even thinking you mentioned about the booing and the, if there were like protests or who knows what the reaction would have been when he finally came back to like some sort of courtside seat next season. Like Mark Cuban kind of got out scotch-free. And I know I mentioned that when you and I were talking last week that like he doesn't ever get asked about all of the stuff that happened to him. And you could argue it was pretty comparable. The behavior wasn't coming directly from him, which I think saves him a little bit. But if that was my boss, I'd be pretty pissed off, and he got away with it. So you just like, to me, it's like, I don't want the next time that Robert Sarver, Robert Sarver-like situation comes about in sports or anywhere else, for it to have to fall on companies, labor, fans, like consumers, basically in this situation, to have to drive the change. Like that bothers me. Maybe that's too like, no one cares about that. We don't have to talk about it for that long if nobody cares. But like that bothers me personally, that it took not Adam Silver doing what's in his power to do and righting the situation, but it took PayPal. It took Chris Paul. It took all of us who were pissed off for the past week, seeing the way that he behaved, put out in a report for something to finally change. Like, does that bother you? Is it just me?
No, like I get it, because it does seem like the league was like, hey guys, you chill about this? If you're not, like, let us know. Like, it was kind of them waiting for us to gauge their decision. Like, they didn't like their decision either, but they were like, maybe if we can squeak by, if we were even like 20% more chill about it, I think the league would have been like, all right, Adam, you're good. Like, you're good to go. And I think the fact that it did blow up in their face and they were testing us more than anything, like they put it in our hands to make this owner sell the team instead of them doing the thing. It kind of got them off scot-free with or it got Adam Silver off with the other owners. Like now he doesn't have to be the owner or the commissioner that made somebody sell the team. We made them sell the team and he gets off scot-free now.
It's like when your parents, like, or whoever, your boss, whatever it is, like they don't yell at you because they know you're going to feel guilty. It was kind of like that, where it was like the league didn't come in hot and like tell us all how to feel. They kind of like let us lead the way, and then we like guilted them into it. I guess maybe we were the parents in that situation. I guess I had it backwards. Like we were the ones who were like, you know what you did, don't do it again. You know what I mean? And like now they're going to end up in the right situation. But yeah, it feels off to me, and it feels like you're saying it lets them off the hook. But I guess in its own way, like the whole thing was when Silver came down with the punishment that I think a lot of people talked about was there was not an appetite for it. And that was what our conversation centered on a lot that first day, was like the other owners just weren't going to stomach punishing a guy for acting this way when a lot of them might have acted this way. But I guess in the end, like this does reinforce that the broader NBA community, whatever you want to call it, isn't accepting this. So maybe it does send the same message in the end, but I can't help but think that it's going to require this whole thing the next time. Again, it's going to be businesses, consumers, the players and athletes and staff to do something, because the leagues just don't do it. I mean, I guess that's obvious. We didn't learn that today, but I can still be mad about it again, right? Is that fair?
No, like I think we did learn that. Like I think Adam Silver has the playbook now. The first one was easy. Like he had the easy plays. It was Donald Sterling. He had the tapes. His wife took the team. His wife sold the team. It was a layup for him. He didn't miss it. Like it was the easiest thing he could do. This one was a lot less hard, or a lot more difficult, because he had a proud owner who didn't really think he did anything wrong, and who was willing to kind of blow the spot up if you took his team from him. And so Adam kind of threw up the Hail Mary, like, all right, a year, let's see who gets mad. If people leave, then I end up winning this somehow. And it happened that way. So now he can do that every time. If he puts out something with an owner that's being terrible, and then you gauge the fan base and see how they handle it and see what sponsors leave. And if they leave, then the owner kind of gives it up. And I think that's his playbook now, and he can always go to it and not have to take any blame for it ever again.
Yeah, it sounds like Roger Goodell, Gary Bettman, Rob Manfred, they might all be appreciate. Hey, thank you. If you could just put it in a PDF and email it to our assistants, we'll just pull it up anytime these other guys act racist, because heaven knows it's coming. But okay, so in addition to Clutch opening a headquarters here in Phoenix next year, there's other things that are going to change, I think. And I think that's what fans are really excited about. So I want to spend some time on that to close the show. First, guys, I'm really excited to tell you about our latest sponsor. If you live in a sunny state like ours, it's pretty likely that you've had a few people stop by offering you what they call free solar. The truth is, many of these companies aren't local, and because of that, they're using misleading tactics that end up overcharging homeowners that they get across. If you've considered solar, but something felt just a little bit off, you're going to love today's sponsor, My Solar Nerd. My Solar Nerd's mission is simple. It's help you get the best solar system to fit your needs. The guys at mysolarnerd.com are local, and they understand the nuances of going solar in Arizona specifically. They've been doing this for a while. They understand that an educated customer is a happy customer, right? Tax credits, the right infrastructure, the right stuff to install, whatever it is, they know it. They've been doing it, and they get that things are different here. We all know things can rust. They can get bent and warped just by the heat. So it's not like other states. Arizona's specific and unique, and they know the deal. They also help you figure out everything that you need to transition as smoothly as possible by managing the entire project for you from start to finish and keeping you updated along the way. Our listeners will get a $50 Amazon gift card when they book a no-commitment evaluation Again, this promotion only available for our listeners and only available for people that are homeowners. So visit mysolarnerd.com and select Locked On in the How'd You Hear About Us section so they know we sent you. Make the switch to solar on your terms. Start your research process now by visiting mysolarnerd.com today and show Locked On some love by letting them know that we sent you. Going solar doesn't need to be complicated. mysolarnerd.com makes it easy. Okay, Aaron, so I think fans are mostly caring today. Maybe they'll have time for the rest of it later. We all know the changes that were implemented in the punishment. Those are all still going to happen. We don't know what's happening with the rest of the owners, who's going to become the owner. I want to give some time to that at the end of the show. But first and foremost, I was telling you before we got on that it's almost hard for me to zoom out and realize like the owner's gone. Like I'm thinking of it as like, oh, the investigation is culminating in this moment. And maybe that's like the journalist brain because I can't not think of things that way. But like, this is a guy people have wanted gone for a very, very, very long time. Fans, we've talked a lot about how the other owners probably didn't already like this guy. So this is a huge thing. And if there's a guy who's a better dude, a person, it could be a woman, who is more well-liked, who actually spends money, who actually cares about building a business the right way, all that stuff, this, like I said at the top, is going to be a pretty major turning point for basketball in Phoenix. Like this has the chance to really, really set things off in a good direction if they get the right guy or woman.
Yeah, like it's such a weird power vacuum now. Like it just opens up so many like possibilities of just people that are willing to, like, it was probably really good executives even that was just saw Phoenix. It was like, it would be cool to work there. But I heard those Sarver stories. Like, I think there were really smart people that potentially didn't work here because of him. So I think just even that in general, like we just get a better front office, better people working, like even just with the day-to-day stuff, because I'm sure the best people didn't want to work with Sarver. Like you don't get people that good that hear about a terrible guy that's around the office just terrorizing it. So I think just even when it comes to the day-to-day stuff, we're probably just going to get better people in the building.
Somebody was who doesn't live here, but obviously this is a huge story, was texting me right when everything was breaking, and they're like, it's crazy that the Suns were able to turn everything around knowing what we know now about Sarver. Like they had the Nash years, they came out of that. You would have had to be the worst owner possible to ruin that. And even then you could say that it didn't end up as well as it could have.
Yeah.
And then it was bad for a really long time. They had a couple blips, 2013, whatever, where things were a little better. But this doesn't necessarily matter for the future. I guess the point is they won't have to get lucky if they actually have investment and leadership and all those types of things that a lot of other NBA teams have. But you ever think about how crazy it is that they got James, Monty, and Book all wanting to be here for really like inexplicable reasons? Like if any of us were in those shoes, we would have been out or never even signed up for this whole thing. We all wanted to not sign up, but we were stuck here because we live here and we were born into it and whatever. And they chose it. That's crazy. It's lucky, but now it has the potential with actual investment to become way more than lucky. And we already felt good about everything that was happening basketball-wise. You add legitimate investment and leadership, and you're off to the races. I think that's kind of what this is, right? Like this is something where if you get the right person in place, you could take what's already awesome and make it like sustainably incredible for a long time.
Yeah, it's like I feel like we can get back to like the history of our team. Like it seemed like this team, like with Sarver, has always been outside of the history of it. So I think like just being able to look back and bring people back that probably wouldn't return while Sarver was under us, like we could celebrate like the Quentin Richardsons now who would have never come back. Like we could celebrate like the Amaris and like the Diaz and like those teams, because a lot of teams do that. They bring in like their old guys and they sit courtside and like it's like this celebration of them. And we don't do anything like that because nobody liked the owner and nobody wanted to come back and be celebrated. So I think for us to go back and we can kind of like celebrate this team and like the past of them.
I think you I know you already said some of that last week, and I am fully on board with you, but I think you should watch out before you say it anymore. You got to charge the Suns for these PR ideas. Like this is, can they get Sean Marion and Amari Stoudemire at opening night to do a Ring of Honor ceremony? Because I will show up the minute doors open, and I will not even wear a credential because I will be fan Brendon to the 100% if that were to happen. I love Sean Marion was my first favorite player before I even could watch the Suns consistently because I was 5 and I had to watch whatever was on the TV. Like I knew I liked Sean Marion. And so yes to all of what you're saying. It is crazy because I agreed with you, and I've brought this up at other times about the front office too, doing the show of like a lot of these teams will foster relationships with these players and then bring them back as front office people, right? Like I think Zach Randolph has a role with the Grizzlies. Shane Battier was with Miami. Now he's like a big tech investor. But like you see these things, the Suns don't have that. I said the Suns don't have that. Then I forgot the GM actually is a literal example of that. But that just reinforces the luck of it, right? Like, what on earth did James Jones want to come back for? He was a super bright dude who was a leader in the union, well-respected, relationships everywhere. Why did he come here? I don't get it. I really don't get it. Book, I guess.
Yeah, I think it all just starts and ends with Book because there was really no other reason. He knew who Sarver was back then. So I think, and to have to be one-on-one with that guy and have to spend his money and do all of that, like, I don't know why he signed up for it, but he got to see the end of it.
The year. He should get another trophy for the one he already won just to celebrate the difficulty of the job that he had. Not to mention, I mean, like, not to return to the bad stuff, but like, imagine being a black man doing that after you knew all this stuff. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Like McDonough couldn't get along with him. McDonough's a handsome, young, white man. And James Jones was like, I got this. I will be able to handle this. And he did.
I think it's wild because like Sarver had so many terrible relationships with people. James Jones couldn't work with some of his best friends. Like he couldn't get some of like the people he was closest with to send players over here like with Clutch. And he's like pretty much one of their homies. And he couldn't even do that because of the owners. Like his owner had his arms tied behind his back, trying to GM a team and not being able to work with a real agency. I don't know how James Jones did it. I don't know how he signed up for it, but the dude, like I knock him for a lot of stuff, but him being able to do this was pretty crazy.
Not trading for Eric Gordon, handling the most toxic workplace environment in the league. Yes, I think it balances out very much in the right direction. It's crazy. I don't know exactly how it changes. I mean, obviously the Clutch thing is one of the obvious ones. I would think James Jones has a decent relationship with those people, considering he knows LeBron personally and all that stuff. So I would hope that's like an easy, tangible thing. But like, you know, it's like a cliche among basketball internet people, but that phrase of ownership is the biggest competitive advantage in the NBA and all of sports, I think, but especially the NBA, when one player and one investment can really make such a difference. That is kind of rolling around my head today because it's not like, just think about the Clippers, right? As an example, like we talk a lot about the Sterling thing. They have one of the richest people on the planet as their owner now. Like,
yeah.
That dude is just like, money is not even anything to him. Like, sure, you want to have 30 people in the front office, go for it. You want to build a new arena, go for it. You want to pay a bunch of luxury tax for a team that lost in the play-in round, go for it. Whatever. You want to give up all our picks for Paul George so that Kawhi Leonard can come and we'll just figure it out later by outspending everybody, you do that. Like, that's kind of what we're talking about. I don't know who's going to own the Suns. Well, that's a conversation for later. It sounds like it's going to be a long process. Ramona Shelburne reported that there's not like an immediate suitor. But that's kind of where this could go. And it most likely is going to be somebody significantly more wealthy than Robert Sarver, because he was not wealthy and he only owned 35%. So if you're looking at somebody who's buying 60, 70% of a $2 or $3 billion team, they're going to have a lot of money, and they're probably going to use that to invest in the team, which is something that's been foreign to Suns fans for 20 years.
Yeah, like I think for just the fact that things happen here, it's not like and I don't want to knock anybody's city, like
Knock a city. What's the worst city in the NBA?
no, I'm not like it's not one of those small market teams like that they're buying. Like it's not anything like that. They even Woj tweeted it, which seemed like he was trying to help Sarver sell the team, but it was like people love this market, they love the area, they love like just the place, like they love Phoenix. So I think like that's all going to come into play in this. And dude,
everybody in the NBA loves Phoenix.
Yeah.
It's always been there. That's part of why it's been so frustrating that guys don't want to sign here, because it's beautiful in the winter. Everybody knows that. It's close to LA. It has its own nightlife scene. There's tons of people. It's a big media market. You're not going to have to worry about sponsorships and business opportunities and all that stuff. It's a sleeping giant, and instead of selling it to somebody who could take advantage of that, Jerry Colangelo screwed up, and now there's an opportunity to fix that.
Yeah, so I think like it's just gonna bring like a whole different energy to the team, and I think just a new owner is gonna fix a lot of holes that we probably didn't see before.
We talked about this a couple times over the offseason. Are you thinking the U-Haul guy, the Quick Trip guy? What else is based here? PetSmart. Who's going to be the owner?
I don't know, like probably QT. I'll give it that one.
Okay. No, I think the recent trend has been like hedge fund people who don't even live in the state. So like that's a boring answer. It's not Bob Iger or whatever, although he doesn't have enough money.
Yeah, I'm gonna say he don't got the money.
That's probably who it's gonna be. Like the guys who own the Philly team or Milwaukee. A lot of the recent purchases have been, maybe they live like I wouldn't be surprised if it's somebody who's like maybe based in LA and then they buy the Suns and they get to fly in when they want to. Like that it's not. But if there's money, I don't think Suns fans will care who it is. It doesn't need to be like
say just give it to Phil Knight so we can all be happy and just be good.
We can finally get a book signature shoe if we do that, I think.
Yeah.
All right. That's enough for today. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be more reporting, more fallout. I'm waiting for the Baxter Holmes story explaining all that went into this, or Woj, or whoever it ends up being, because I think there was a lot behind the scenes, more so than just PayPal and Draymond Green and Chris Paul talking about it. So keep it right here. Hit follow, hit subscribe. Make sure you do not miss a show. Be back next week for Media Day and training camp, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. Yeah. In the meantime, make Locked On NBA your second listen to catch up on everything else going on around the league.